This We're Gonna Rappin', a podcast with a purpose. I'm Ken Cooper here with Alex and Flizzo. Today, we'll discuss how poorly crafted media hurts those who consume it. But first, let's play Wrecking or Rapping. A spoonful of copium helps the blasphemy go down, idolatry go down. As you stare onto stars, remember who you are. Don't fall down too far. When you put your hopes in someone else, make sure you know them IRL. Their story told is bought and sold. To gain some fame, they'd sell their soul. Do devils work, a heart gone cold? Humility to cast your mold. Change your ways, you're not too old. All right, Wrecking or Rapping, you must choose one.
That was
going with
very
rapping. I like that.
Mary Poppins.
Oh.
Sounded like. Gave me a Mary Poppins vibe.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, you think Mary Poppins, good rapper?
Yeah,
I guess I do.
It was based off of that spoonful of sugar.
Did you attack Dollar Tree, though? Or was that a different word you said? It sounded like you were saying the Dollar Tree goes down.
Which is what we're talking about. These stars that people worship is a form of idolatry. But before we get into that, we could read some Shakespeare. As I said, we're not doing the sonnets right now. I went back to Midsummer Night's Dream because I was looking for... So there's a play in that has a lion, and the lion... So they say, well roared, lion. And I was just looking to see if there was something that the lion said. But I found this lines by Theseus in Act 5, Scene 1. It goes... Lovers and madmen have such seething brains, such shaping fantasies that apprehend more than cool reason ever comprehends. The lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of imagination all compact. One sees more devils than vast hell can hold. It goes on, but I stopped there. Did you catch anything in it? Or
now, what do you
feel
think
anything
that
in
means?
it?
I mean, once I was glad that at the end there it said they're all compact because I was like, I could be all three of those things.
Well,
Perhaps.
So what stood out was our imaginations. Yeah. So I'm thinking that the lunatic, the lover, and the poet, they create all these devils in their heads with their imaginations. That's why they're sort of all miserable people in a sense. Lovers are typically miserable, but in Shakespeare's world, they usually are because chasing after somebody and it's usually not reciprocated, or there's a third or fifth. I think in Midsummer's case, there's a fifth party involved. So that's why their imaginations create all these devils more. And then there's just I don't know if it's a metaphor then, more than heck can hold.
The lunatic, lover, and poet. So they're all passionate about stuff. Poet's always passionate about some topic, maybe a person, much like the lover's passionate about a certain person, and the lunatic can also be passionate about a certain person or topic. So they're all like intertwined. Somebody who's very passionate could be a lunatic, it could be a lover, or they could be a poet. That's what I took from that.
Yes. And I was thinking they could also be imagination people like the Temptations. It was just my imagination.
Yeah, but I thought in the thing it said that they're all the same person.
Were they? I thought it was saying that they're
like that was like
just...
that might have been my
from
interpretation.
a poet to say they're all the same person doesn't necessarily mean it's literal.
I mean, it's also basically just a description of any society.
Like that person could be all three at the same time. You could be a lunatic about something.
I could see that.
And then be poetic about it. And then at the same time also love it. Like Eagles fans.
Well, I would have went the other way. I would have started with I guess a lover, and then he becomes poetic about his love, and then his love drives him crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'm
like
going to take that with what we're talking about, that these stars are lunatics and poets, and I suppose lovers, but oftentimes we see them in the news in the bad sense of loving. Anyway, name recognition of actors, nostalgia baiting, and meta-referencing are cop-outs to make lazy art. They say something's name, and the audience is hit with a good feeling because it's familiar, regardless of if it makes logical sense. This erodes people's attention span and ability to follow a story. It's like instead of a sentence being subject, predicate, and verb, it's just object, 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 repeatedly pushing the dopamine button.
Somebody brought up a good point of like all the movies that came out this year. All the movies that came out this year are basically...
Were they all
sequels? They're either sequels or like reimagining of the same story. Nothing's really that original.
Reboots.
Yeah, reboots.
I don't
Where
think
it's-
Harold and the Purple Crown
it's-
is a sequel.
What do you mean? That's a book from like 30 years ago. But yeah, and it's also been that way. I feel like since the writer's strike in maybe it was early 2000s, like around the same time reality TV was created as a result of that writer's strike.
The original, the first
Yeah.
big one that.
But yeah, it's just
Okay.
been so long that people have been saying there's no new ideas. But yeah, I mean, this year especially was nonstop sequels, I felt. So you said yes to at least that idea of the dopamine pushing. So you're familiar with that happening, Alex?
Well, I mean,
And
isn't that all life is? It's just doing something to make you feel good in the moment.
in the moment, why so?
Yeah. I mean, that's
Why?
just how life is. Like, you live from moment to moment.
But
not
what about
supposed to,
like
like-
delayed
There's life in
satisfaction?
between those moments.
I don't know. I live my life a quarter mile at a time. I don't know.
For those 10
But
seconds or
you,
less, you're
you
free.
see other people have that stuff. Raising a kid is very difficult in the moment, but you know there's other times where it feels good, or even just like exercise, dieting is putting yourself through a struggle in the moment with faith that it will be better in the future. You just don't subscribe to any of those.
Yeah,
I
you
live in
never
the
go
moment.
for that long-term gain, like it's going to pay off in the end type of outlook? Or you just always like, I just want something that feels good right now, right
No, I mean,
here.
like tomorrow's not given, man. You're not sure what's going to happen next week. You just kind of go with the flow and see where it ends up.
Yeah,
Well, I
but
guess that's
not
why I
that's not
continue to
good
use the
to
word
look at-
faith.
look at it always like that.
I remember seeing a video recently about that there's a part of the brain that is for discipline, and the more you make yourself do things that you don't like, the stronger that gets, and it's easier to put off that delayed satisfaction. But if you've never done that, then it would be difficult, and you might think that it's not worth it.
I mean, it sounds super bleak. I was going to say, like, well,
Mine is, or
what's
yours?
worth it? Like, really? Like,
Well, I don't know. What is
Lots
worth
of
it?
things are worth it.
So why do you get out of bed?
I mean, it depends on the day. Sometimes I spend a lot of time just lying there.
Yeah, well, I've been there, but yeah, so like when I was at my most nihilistic, that's how I thought. It was like, why get out of bed? Why even go to the toilet? Like I can either just explode on my innards or go all over the bed, and it's all pointless, isn't it?
Well, no,
But it's
because
not
that would be like
pointless.
you'd have to create more work
Put
for
on a
yourself of
diaper.
having to clean it up or be uncomfortable.
Why do you have to
Because who
clean-
likes to be
Why do you have
wet?
to clean
Just
it
put a
up?
diaper on.
Because who wants to be wet or smelly?
Well,
You
so
change
why
the diaper.
don't? So we're talking about what really matters. Why does it matter if you're wet and smelly?
I mean, that's a personal thing there. Like, there's the argument that people would say
Uh-huh.
things are done for society compared to things are done for yourself. But oddly enough, I actually just watched My Dinner with Andre this earlier today, and this is
Classic.
kind of the whole point of that movie.
His warm,
But
heated
like, I
blanket he
don't
doesn't want to
view,
give up.
yeah, I don't view things in the way of like I don't do things because they're societal tropes. Like I'm not like, oh, I'm putting on pants today because society doesn't want me to walk around without pants on. It's like I put on pants because it's like, oh, this is comfortable, or I like these pants and I like the way I look in them. Like I don't do things because I feel like I should. Like I don't pee my pants because I don't want to be wet and smelly or sticky. I don't like the feeling of being sticky, so I'm not going to pee
Yeah,
my
but
pants.
Why wear pants?
Mhm.
But then there's the
Like,
argument of the
You
other
telling me
side.
it doesn't feel good to not
Because
wear
I
pants?
feel comfortable in pants. Yeah, let's say 80% of my life I'm not wearing pants. So like when I'm wearing pants, it's because I chose to wear pants. It's not because I'm being forced to wear pants.
Well, we're
100%.
grateful that you hopefully wore pants today. This will still be continued throughout the whole theme, but going back to actors are paid liars. I don't believe Henry Cavill is a nerd any more than John Cena wants to help kids or The Rock and Hugh Jackman have natural muscles over the age of 50. Mr. Beast was recently exposed for faking his videos, among other things. If they're in front of a camera, they're portraying a character. As we enter the Gemini era of AI everything, people will be more confused as to what is real, and they don't have experience to help them since we interact with the real world less than ever. And the majority of internet commenters are bots. So that's fake people talking about fake people.
I think Henry Cavill's a nerd because if you actually look at him before he got like famous, he was lanky.
What does
Like
that
he was just
make
like
him a nerd
no,
for?
because he
So,
no,
are
but like
nerds
he
lanky?
didn't have that.
It's standard.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you guys and how much time you spend in comic book shops, but he had that look of a generic, like, oh, you're just a, like, I can see you being a nerd, but when he got a job and they're like, we're gonna pay you a lot of money to spend more time in the gym, it's like, yeah, when you don't have to do anything else and you get paid to just work out, you can become a wall of a man. I don't think he's as nerdy now as he would have wanted to be, but
Well, so that also touched on the other thing I want to get to is that how the male image is now made in steroids, and you can call it HGH or PET or TRT. And I don't care about people doing it, only that it's lied about, because it hurts men and women who think their man is less than for not reaching an unrealistic standard. And the same problem happens in sports. When Lance Armstrong had his victory stripped for doping, it was said if they gave the win to the next competitor with no doping allegations, it would be 17th place. The problem of cheating starts long before the professional realm, as people will do anything to win, and it's been going on so long, the public has become delusional as to what a human can do. So I don't believe Henry Cavill is a wall of a man, I suppose. Maybe a wall of muscle, but...
Yeah,
I
but
mean, it looks
even
impressive.
even when you're using
But it's not
TRT
real.
or HGH
So
or
does
something,
CGI.
you're still working out. You're still putting in the effort to get your body that
Oh
way.
yeah,
It's just
and
assisted. So I mean, if they would just say like, come out and say like, hey, my body is this big because I had a personal trainer, I worked out 8 hours a day, and I took a lot of
but
enhancing protein and stuff.
it's the leaving that part out. So it
Which
leaves people to think, oh, I could do this if I work out all day and do my diet right and dehydrate. But there's still a missing element that they're not saying, because then
You can also be
I
rich
don't know,
and not have a
society
full-time
says,
job.
well, yeah,
there's the other level of when superheroes in shows and stuff, like the guy who plays Homelander, his Homelander suit is a muscle suit. Like when he takes it off, he's
oh,
not jacked. He's just and like
well,
when
that's
people
what.
find that out, they get like offended. They're like, "Oh man, this person didn't want
So
to."
But
yeah,
that's
and
a
I think that's
character,
what they're
though, that
afraid
needs
of
to
if
be
they
big.
say that they had supplements.
But
I know,
like,
but like
if
it's
your
the same
character
thing
needs
as
to be
the
big,
people.
that
Like The
they
Rock
have
is a
to be that way.
character that needs to be big. The guy from Chuck got big, and then when he was Shazam, he still wore a muscle suit.
Hmm. Well, that's
Zachary Levi.
they're probably doing CGI muscles now as well. I mean, at the
Well,
very
They
I
least,
did
don't
the
that
know.
with the
I know
new
they make
Wolverine.
the.
lighting is hugely important.
Yeah, the new
Oh, really?
Deadpool and Wolverine movie, they did CGI muscles for Hugh Jackman, mainly because he was wearing long sleeves initially, and it got bad test footage results. So then they CGI'd his arms without
They
sleeves on.
his sleeve shorter. Oh yeah, I've never
Yeah,
mentioned it,
Oh, is
but
that all right?
the Ben is the reason we have 3/4 sleeves on our shirts, because he
Baseball
liked them on
team.
jerseys. Yeah, so I liked them
Yo,
too.
I like 3/4 because it's like rolled up, but you don't have to worry about stretching out the arm. Because like I like to roll
Mm.
up a long sleeve, but then like it gets all that wooey at the end, and you're like, oh, this shirt's kind of ruined.
Yeah, you can't
I
have
like
the
a baseball
wooey.
shirt.
Like I said, I'm fine with people taking this stuff, and I'm all for a complete open competition where do whatever it takes to win, but it needs to be honest about what it takes to win. And I recognize again, yeah, with the taking those substances that you still need to do the work. There's a scene
Yeah.
from Pumping Iron 2 where the guy's like, oh, if I took that, I could do that. He's like, no, you couldn't. And I agree. It's like there's still a lot of work, and the dieting is insane. But what really irks me is the celebrities that talk about their stuff, but they leave that out. That changes society's view. So society thinks like what an in shape man should be. Now it requires substances to get to that body. It's not a natural man. And it's the same thing for women, we know, but that's just a different topic.
Yeah, with them it's more like plastic
But
surgery
there's
or certain other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Fillers
There's
and
there's a
makeup, of
comedian
course.
out there that said something along the lines of like when it comes to the Olympics, we should just like allow them to do as many drugs as possible
Mhm.
because we should test to see what feats the human body can reach. Like get
I
these
think
people on as
somebody came up
many
with that
steroids
concept.
as you can and see how far you can actually triple jump.
I think there's a couple guys that are trying
The
to do.
XFL?
It's called the enhanced games or something like that, where they want to do that. They want to
interesting.
say like no limits. Let's do it. Let's see how far we can push the human body with
See,
enhancements.
I would watch
for it.
that, like especially if on the basis knowing that it's not achievable.
But I guess it ends up being the problem, and I think why the celebrities don't mention it is because they're supposed to be influencing children, basically, and you don't want them influencing children into taking drugs.
They're comfortable with influencing children into getting plastic surgery, though, right? So they're like, oh, like I got a nose job, I got this,
also,
and they never say like, oh, I did that, but clearly, like, there's thousands of pictures
Zac
of you.
Efron, his whole chin changed, and he said he got an injury.
He broke
you
his
gonna
face.
defend him? Yeah, sure.
Well, I mean,
Zac Efron,
were you there?
That could be
No.
true. I mean,
So what are you defending this
got
stranger for?
If you look at Zac Efron 2024, he's looking more like himself than he did the 2 years after the injury. Like the muscles have gotten more natural. Like apparently, because the science,
He
the
could have
science
gotten
that I've
multiple
heard
surgeries.
was because he busted his jaw open, so they had to reconstruct the bottom of his face, which then made the way he used his face muscles different. So they got strengthened in a different way, changing the shape of his face. But if you look at him now, he looks more back to natural.
I bet he just got more surgeries to refine it to what people
I don't
will
know.
stop questioning it, which is what I'm going to talk about, that celebrities are companies and they have a team guiding their movements. One of the issues brought to light with Drake's takedown, besides his plastic surgery six-pack, was how they test new ideas to see what the public will believe. If you look close enough at a star's history, you'll see when they tried to take their personality one way and the audience rejects it. Corporations do this too. The MCU is a great example. They said, here's the new face of the MCU, all women. And their mostly male fan base said, I have no representation. I'm not watching it. Then they scrambled for Deadpool, Hugh Jackman, and Robert Downey Jr. These corporations hate their fan base. Video games, superheroes, space exploration, all play on a power fantasy. Who would have thought men are more obsessed with power?
So I'm going to disagree with you again.
I see pride.
This all-female MCU face, right? I don't think it failed because people didn't feel represented. I think it failed because they pushed
that was
out
just a play on words.
terrible stories. They pushed out terrible stories. I guess they rushed them, or they just didn't think about them long enough.
I would also
But they had
think that
abundance
the
of comics
female...
and source materials to go off of, and they just put out absolute.
Whoa! No one uses the source material.
Not anymore, I guess.
Which, like, why not? Like, if you don't have writers and you have all this material written, like, why is it? But I'm also not a fan of this, like, trying to mimic the comics, but with real life. Just do animation again. I'd be fine. Like,
well, that's fine. But like, it's always weird though, like, because a comic really is just a storyboard, which is the first step of making a live action movie. So you really could just. But also, if people like the comic, why not just make it into a live action thing?
Because they don't want the ending being predictable, I guess. But in the end, it still is predictable. So why not just
good guys win?
Make that story?
Well, so there was a phase of animation that people seem to ignore that it happened, where they started to try to make live action comics, but they were comics with motion. I know The Watchmen has one out of there that it's like legit the same panel, but then like they animated the character bouncing across the screen, or they animated lip movement, and like they didn't redraw anything. They just changed parts of the comic to make it animated. And
there's
like,
a great YouTube
lot of other
channel
companies did that and
does that.
You don't hear about that anymore.
There's a great YouTube channel that took all the newer Star Wars comics. They got voice actors, and then they just read all the lines on the comics, put the panels up, and did some zooms and other stuff, used sound effects. It makes a great story, even though it's just the comic brought into the video. Nothing extra except for the voices and sound effects. But it is a really great medium of storytelling, where you would figure if you just added actual scenes to those panels that it would just translate incredibly well. But they never think to do that.
I feel it would, because that's basically a book on tape.
Well, my guess is that it relates to the 3-second attention span, that for the newest generation of kids, they need more stimulus going on.
Maybe they're living less than a quarter mile at a time.
No, they're living
it's
at
an
light
eighth of a
speed.
mile at a time?
They're living 3 tablets at a time.
Yeah.
Please take a moment to subscribe or follow the channel. Alex, is anything wrecking your week?
I mean, isn't something always?
Well, if there wasn't, we wouldn't have a segment.
I did not pick a topic based off of apparently what you said our notes were going to be, but I am
That's fine.
annoyed with streaming services, which happens to kindly
Which-
just suit into with what we're talking about today.
Yeah,
But
But I think we all
on
are
two,
as
well, yeah, no, I
annoyed with
mean,
streaming
should everyone
services.
be? But it's on both levels of having to have 9,000 streaming services, as
Mhm.
well as not being able to find something you want to watch because you don't know where it is. I legit would like hear a movie or see a short or something like, oh, I want to watch that movie, so I have to Google it, and then Google's like, oh, it should be available on these platforms, but this one you have to buy it, this one you have to rent it, this one you have to subscribe for, and it's like, why? Like, I just want to see this 30-year-old movie. I should not have to pay you another $20. And then on top of that, anytime I don't like to go to the theater, so I wait until I can buy a movie, and then I'll buy it because it's still cheaper to buy a movie for two people to watch at home than it is to take two people to the theater. 2 weeks later, it's free on a streaming service that I already pay for. So what the heck? It's very
Well, I
frustrating.
mean,
Yeah,
the
and they don't
movies
want you
are
to
the
know
experience,
the
though, right?
schedule so much in the
No,
theater.
no. Oh, no. I went to see Wolverine and Deadpool because I had to see it in theaters before it got spoiled, and
Well,
I
I'm
wanted
sure that
to
was an awful
punch the man
experience.
behind me.
Yeah.
Like, I legit turned around to look at this man in the face for how annoying he was being. Like, I don't want people. I want to experience an experience in my house and just, like, pause a movie, go to the bathroom, or, like,
Deadpool's gimmick is that he's like the most annoying superhero. So you'd imagine his fans are as well. Similar to like Rick and Morty having very annoying fan bases.
yeah, that's true.
I
Pretentious
also
fan
wanted
base,
to give a
right?
shout out that Flizzo was the first person to ever tell me about Deadpool. It was just like, who's this weird Spider-Man?
I mean,
But
to be
yeah,
fair, there's
speaking-
still a lot of the world that probably thinks he's weird Spider-Man.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Or Slade.
But speaking of all that old history, Flizzo, did you have anything for this week in history?
Well, speaking of the 90s, back in 1992, this week we had the Dream Team, the 1992 men's Olympic basketball team, defeat Croatia for the gold medal in the Olympics. They defeated them 117-85. And the Dream Team, of course, was this list of all-star greats and one college player, surprisingly enough. But yeah, it was Charles Barkley, Larry Bird, Clyde Drexler, Patrick Ewing, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Christian Laettner, Karl Malone, Chris Mullin, Scottie Pippen, David Robinson, and John Stockton. And they basically dominated the entire thing, and they were an incredible team this week. Obviously, the Olympics are going on, so it's usually in the summer, but they were a great
I think
team.
that was the first year that they had professional ballers, that it was just college basketball before then.
Right, yeah. They opened the floodgates to an amazing lineup that
Oh yeah, now
people could only dream of.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
such
why
a
they call it the Dream Team.
strange situation of how the Olympics are now, because there's some sports where it's like you have to be an amateur. If you take a sponsorship like the cover of the Wheaties box, then you're no longer an amateur and you can't compete. But basketball and now hockey, that happened after the Miracle team against the Soviets. They started using professional hockey players.
Miracle on
I know
Ice.
college kids can get money now for things because there's a reason they stopped making the college football video game. You couldn't use their likenesses, and then people were making money off these kids that weren't making money themselves. But the NCAA changed their rules that college kids can now get sponsorships and sell their likenesses.
Yeah, that was the biggest scam with college football.
Maybe
because
good.
They were making billions upon billions of dollars on these kids, and then if they took a dinner or a flight, they'd lose their eligibility in college, which was absolutely terrible for them. But I mean, a lot of coaches
Then there was
and
that
stuff were
thing with
saying
Johnny
it was
Football.
for the game.
Yeah.
Reggie Bush also got in trouble for it. They took his Heisman trophies, and it's like,
Wow,
it was ridiculous. But now, they can
just
get
for
paid,
something that
so.
becomes okay later.
Well, yeah,
That's exactly what you're
that should be
playing
another
for. Not just okay, it's literally what you're playing the game for, is to then get paid very well. But the Olympics is interesting because with professional basketball, they're picking people out of high school, or they were for a little bit, and now they do like 1 or 2 years of college. Where do you pick the players from now? because all the best players are going to be the professional ones by the time they're 18 or 19. For other sports, there
Baby
is that
Olympics.
professional avenue. Baby Olympics.
Mhm.
Well, there are
So-
the Junior Olympics.
So we're going to
Yeah,
break the
I guess
Olympics
that's
up. We're going
true.
to have baby Olympics and extreme drug Olympics. We're not going to go. We're not doing. I
No
mean, we don't
in
have to just do
between.
normal people Olympics. I like that joke where people say we should have one normal person compete in every sport, so that way you can actually
Yeah.
gauge how impressive what these people are doing is.
Yeah, just a 40-year-old office worker running the 100-meter
Yeah, like,
in his 12 and a
Yeah,
half
like,
seconds.
I'd
I mean,
watch that. I mean,
that'd probably be good for an office worker, though. 12 seconds.
I mean, he
I'm
trained
thinking
for
they might
like
be
years.
pushing
but
20. Oh, okay.
I mean, there's the Josh can do that pretty fast. He has a solid sprint, and he's an office worker.
Yeah, I guess so. Well,
we should do
we're talking
our
about
own
going back to the
Olympics.
whole. Oh, that's an idea. What would the podcast Olympics be? Would be an interesting idea to think about. I don't know how many different devices, like you're holding the microphone, you hold a microphone, a webcam, you're lighting all at once to see how long you can keep your hands up. And one would be the marathon stream that you'd go days on end just streaming. Back to idolatry is today's Bible reading is the golden calf, because that is about people making up their own gods, and it'll be from Exodus 32 verses 1 through 6. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mound, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And Aaron said unto them, Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives and your sons and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people brake off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at their hands, and fashioned it with a graving tool, after he had made a molten calf. And they said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose to play. This is the word of the Lord. So as people became impatient, so they made their own gods to worship. And that is what people are doing with celebrities, is that, like you were saying, Alex, about caring about today, what has happened to this Lord? I haven't seen him in so long, but I can go on my phone right now and worship what's his face, who has a gold medal around his neck.
Why bother idolizing things in general?
Was the
What do
alternative?
you consider the difference between that golden calf type idolization versus having a role model?
So I had wanted to make that connection of that a person you know. I say that it's good to have a role model and that it's somebody you should know so that you can actually obtain what they're doing. Whereas if it is someone you're disconnected from, you don't really know the full story. You don't know if there is a team of people behind them. If you're then unable to replicate the results, like you research everything a celebrity says in an interview and then you do their exact regimen and you still can't replicate the results, you think something's wrong with you, but you just don't know that there's more behind it. Where if it's actually somebody you know, you can have a real conversation with them. They can actually lift you up then. Because I don't think it's achieving the same result is as important as just lifting yourself up. And that's where I think just a role model is good, but not to worship them.
So what would you do in the face of somebody who doesn't have a particular role model in their life that they can actually interview or make a direct connection with if they have to then look at the Olympian or something?
Hopefully they have people in their lives that want to be better as well. And then you can connect with them and at least you're working together. You find an Olympian as a role model, that the two of you or a group, and you talk, but at least then you have real people that you're seeing real results. And so you don't feel isolated, like I'm the only one that can't do this, which I think people do end up feeling in this internet world where they see something from home and they're creating it all in their imagination.
So,
but then if
like
somebody doesn't have anybody in their life,
I always see a distinction. I I always see a distinction between sport role models and, let's say, like actors and stuff like that. Where like sports role models, you know what their achievements are. If you play the sport, then you know how difficult that could be. What do? Oh, they need to get up early, work out, do this, and then just keep doing that. Wash, rinse, repeat. Whereas if it's like some type of celebrity, it might be like, oh, their cousin's brother's uncle was a producer and that's how they got the job. And then they got this hook up there. Really wasn't actually hard work. It was just knowing the right person. A swimming athlete, you could know the right person, but if you didn't train hard enough, you're not going to be on that stage.
I do think knowing the right person still is necessary to get on that highest level. You have to get in front of the right judges, I guess.
Right, but sometimes actual hard work does bring you in front of the right people. Especially in like the sport aspect, the right people kind of gravitate towards you if you work harder and try to do more in that aspect. But in other existences, that might not come that way. Like if you're the best at doing math, you might not necessarily get in front of the right people to go to Harvard or something.
So what do you think about actors and athletes being seen as role models? Because that's what I want to talk about in a second is, what are we trying to be role models for?
Athletes, you would model your progress or your worth ethic after theirs. You probably wouldn't model your personal life after an athlete, because it's a mixed bag. It could be like they get all flashy and they start doing crazy things, or they just stay humble and stay out of the news.
I was thinking with athletes, a lot of them will get these $1 million contracts and still end up broke. So there's a life lesson of how to manage your money that isn't being taught by athletes. What am I trying to teach as a role model is just how to live a good life. And that answer is different for everybody, and it even changes with your age. So I just say to educate yourself, and then over time you improve how you educate yourself. Look onto people you know in real life, and if there's no one currently succeeding around you, maybe form a support group of people who want to do better. And I do want to add that just being a Christian doesn't mean you're a good person. It doesn't mean you stop sinning. In fact, it's impossible for you to stop. So stop thinking other people are holier than thou. And on that, I want to continue reading in Exodus, now at verses 26 through 28. After Moses comes back down, sees them worshiping the calf, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, "Who is on the Lord's side? Let him come unto me." And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together unto him. And he said unto them, "Thou sayest, the Lord God of Israel, put every man his sword by his side, and go in and out from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor." And the children of Levi did according to the word of Moses. And there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. Speaking of 3,000.
Speaking of 3,000, okay.
Today's 24 card, the numbers are 6, 6, 6, and 6. So this one kind of solves itself. Yeah. Because one of our most common equations is 4 times 6 equals 24. So the sum total of 4 6s equals 24.
Oh, wait, but I know a different way to do it. I
definitely feel dumb on this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I only figured out a different way to do it. I didn't think, I could add them all together.
Yeah, that was your other way. I was like, if you add them all, that's how you get it. How'd you get it, Alex? I got a different way as well.
I did 6 times 6 minus 12.
Yep, that's what I did too. But I mean, that's what I did second. I was like, this might be another way.
But I never considered addition. That's the only way I did it. I only did that, and then Chris is like, but it's easy. And it's like, wait, it is easy, isn't it? Like that's just basic math. I definitely overthink the problem.
That can be life sometimes. Before we leave, I'd like to say, don't compare yourself to who someone else is today. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Make sure to follow Flizzo on Instagram. That's PHLIZO. Follow Alex on Google Maps, link in description. Check out my website, drawingmylifeaway.com. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a nice day. Goodbye.
Deuces.
Adios.